we rolling?
We are rolling.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tony Larson. I'm running for Whatcom County Executive, and I'm sitting here with Chad. Chad called, and he said he had a number of questions for me to answer so he can decide who to vote for county executive. So I invited him here to record this, and we're going to share it with everybody. So, Chad, go ahead.
Well, thank you for having me.
And by the way, he's told me nothing about what kind of questions he's going to deliver here or ask me, and I'm prepared to answer any of them.
No, so like I told you, these questions came from either me or members of the community that, don't have a chance to go to the forums, or even when they do, they don't have, not necessarily the courage, but they don't have the desire to speak out or raise their hand and ask an individual question that, otherwise in a quiet setting they might.
Right, yeah.
So I did get the chance to meet you about 6 months ago, perhaps. You hosted a Bellingham Bills game.
Yes.
That was amazing, and thank you for that. It got rained out.
Yeah.
But I did get to speak.
But it was a lot of fun.
It was. So the players did their dance off, and there was music, and it was a good time. And I got the chance to talk to you for about 5 or 10 minutes while we were there. And it turns out you actually owned the Bills for a while. How did that come apart? Or how did that happen?
Yeah, that was in early 2000s. It was actually in 2000, and the Bellingham Bills were owned by a guy from Philadelphia, a sports attorney from Philadelphia. And the Bellingham Bills, the history there predates World War II in Bellingham. So they long history, and we've had the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Bellingham the Seattle Mariner farm team was here, as well as the San Francisco Giants. So there's been a long tradition of baseball in Whatcom County. And they were going to move. He was going to sell them, and they were going to move to Spokane. And I just felt like with the tradition in Whatcom County that they needed to stay here. So I got involved, and I bought the team, and I owned them for about 8 years.
So did you play baseball before? Or?
I played baseball when I was young, but really basketball was my sport. And I played basketball in college. But it was really just more of a community thing. I knew that I had the ability to turn that organization around. And I thought of it as an opportunity to sort of connect with kids, which is one of my passions. And so my kids literally grew up at the ballpark, and we had great interaction with the community. And now whenever I go to a Bellingham Bills game, and the one that you went to, we actually sponsored that, and that was for first responders as well, and folks from the military. And we sponsored it on their behalf and provided tickets for them. And it really is just an opportunity for me to go back and enjoy great baseball and not have to worry about how many hot dogs are being sold that night.
Now, your son, did he ever get into baseball? Because I heard he's a golfer.
Yeah, he did. He was a heck of a baseball player. And I thought that was going to be his, and he liked basketball as well. He was just a good little athlete. Yep. And but now he's playing golf in college. He transitioned at the very last minute to golf.
So going into this election, I know you have your business, and I know that you have the election. But you also have the most important thing, which is your family. So how is it juggling everything?
Yeah. Well, to me, faith is the first always, and then my wife, and then my children, and it sort of goes out from there. And so I will never sacrifice that. That is always the most important thing. But my family understands that this is really important, and so they're supporting me. So, we still find time to come together, and I'm still operating, our the Whatcom Business Alliance. I'm the founder and I'm the president, so I've got responsibilities there. But the campaign has been interesting because Whatcom County is really in a pivotal time. I think a time that we're going to look back on and say, wow, that was the time that we made a difference. And the population is growing like crazy. We've seen about an 8.5% population increase over the last 5 years alone. And people out there, it's getting a little bit different. Traffic is taking a little longer to get to where we're going, and we're seeing really an extraordinary increase in housing prices, and we're starting to see some of the challenges that are leaking from Seattle and coming to Bellingham, and we don't want to be a Seattle here. I don't. There's some real challenges that have not been addressed, and we're starting to see some of that. So it's a time where we really need leadership. And I believe I've got the skills and the abilities to be the Whatcom County Executive. It's not a policy position, but it's a position that's really responsible for leadership in our community. It provides a platform for leadership, and that's something that I've done and I can do. It's really going to be important to direct resources to the proper places to get some of these things solved, and I think I can do that. And so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity. And most importantly, I think it's really important now that we that we really think about being serious adults, and with all these challenges that we live in a real divisive community. We can see that now with some of the negative stuff that's going on in this campaigning, and I won't be a part of that. But it's really time to get the adults in the room and say, this is a time we want to make Whatcom County better. What do we need to do? How do we pull people together, make that happen, direct the resources to the right place? And that's something I'm prepared to do as Whatcom County Executive.
Now, you mentioned the WBA, which you're the president of, or the owner, right?
The founder and president, yes.
Awesome. I saw a video about the Youth Engagement Initiative. Can you provide some, insight into what that was about and what you were hoping to accomplish with it? And
yeah, it came about as a result of us really identifying a significant problem in Whatcom County, and that is a difficulty finding skilled labor. That was one piece of it on the employer side. But on the young people side, we have 25% of kids that transition off to college, but now we've got 75% that don't, and all of high school is really formatted for college prep. And so what we want to do is create an opportunity for that other 75% to create a pathway from them to living wage jobs in the community. So what we did is, as part of that initiative, started what we call Yes Whatcom. It's the Youth Employment Services. And what we do is we have companies. It's yeswhatcom.com. You can go to it. You can take a look at it. And we've got significant companies in Whatcom County that put profiles there. And then we're working with all of the high schools through their CTE programs, and their counselors and their teachers. And we're sharing with them what these opportunities are, so they can learn what job opportunities are available, what kind of skills are needed. And we're going to be creating apprenticeship programs, internship opportunities, and ultimately companies hiring young people for jobs that they can train them on and sort of move them forward. So we're really excited about it. It's something that it ties into my passion for kids, and it's really a need in the community, not only on the side of young people, but also for companies that are looking for skilled workers and a future workforce. So
I'm going to ask you a very, very basic question now, but I think it's important because a lot of people don't understand. But can you provide a brief description of what a county executive does and what you're hoping to bring to that role that's unique?
Yeah, the county executive is essentially the CEO of the county. So, the county is sort of set up very similar to our federal government. I mean, you've got the executive branch, and that's the county executive and administrative services, and he's responsible. There's 825 employees. It's about a $220 million budget. So the county executive is really responsible for all that, with the exception of the departments that are being led by other elected officials, like the sheriff runs the sheriff department, even though the sheriff needs to come to the county executive for budget requests, because the county executive does the entire budget, and it's approved by the legislative branch, which is the Whatcom County Council. So, and then you've got the court side of it, which is the prosecuting attorney and the courts, and et cetera. So, really the county executive job is really to create a platform for the vision for Whatcom County, and then really manage the operations of the county in an efficient, effective way, and with transparency, and make sure that we're fiscally responsible and viable and efficient and effective, and that we're serving the community in the way that they want to be served.
Like you said, you're the executive or CEO of the county. According to the City of Bellingham's website, at least 742 people in Whatcom County are homeless on any given night, and 1 in 4 of our local working families can't afford their basic needs. What specific plans do you have to combat this issue?
Yeah, that is a multifaceted issue, and I can start on one. Let me start on one side of it. First and foremost, what we need to do is we need to create job opportunities for people. I mean, people that are earning a good income and can afford a home are not homeless, and that's so on the income side, we need to work on that. On the home pricing side, that's a real challenge, and I've got a comprehensive plan for solving, really stabilizing home prices, and it really has to do. It's not brain surgery; it's really a math equation. It's really about putting units online. I mean, we're at about a 0.7% vacancy rate in Whatcom County. In order to stabilize prices, we need to be between 4 and 6%. So in order to do that, we're going to have to get 3,500 to 4,000 units online per year over the next 4 years. In order to do that, there needs to be a countywide comprehensive housing strategy, and that would include working with all 7 mayors of all cities, including Bellingham, and the county executive, and probably the Port of Bellingham, as well as the Economic Development Organization, and really put a plan on how we're going to put that housing online. And it's already underway to a certain degree. I mean, Ferndale is, they've got about 1,500 units online now. Blaine has got about 1,000, but we really need to get everybody together and really decide how we're going to grow. And I've got a number of plans to do that, in terms of expanding UGAs and looking at annexation and just a number of different things. But when we talk about the homeless population, we need to understand that to a certain degree, that's a whole different situation. I mean, that's a whole different group. First and foremost, those people that are on the streets because of economic circumstances, we should have safety nets, and we do. I mean, the county spends about $5 million a year in housing assistance, rent assistance, for hotels, rent assistance, etc. And we need to continue to do that, but we need to do that comprehensively as well. So the county needs to work with the city of Bellingham, because the city of Bellingham spends about the same amount, and we need to make sure there are social safety nets for those folks that are having economic challenges. But there's also a large population that is, we've seen an increase in substance addiction, and it's really sad. I mean, it really is sad. Mental disorders and that sort of thing. And what we need to be able to do is really get those folks connected with people that, and that's one of the common denominators of people that are homeless, especially folks that are suffering from alcohol or drug addiction and mental issues, is that they've been disconnected from their support system, from their family, from their loved ones, from any support system at all. And so part of a comprehensive plan, I call it connect and direct. So we first and foremost need to get them off the streets, and we need to get them connected to loved ones. And if they're not here, if they're not in the community, we need to connect them with a support system. And then we need to assess what the real challenge is. Is it economic circumstances? Is it addiction circumstances? Is it mental health disorders? And then we need to direct them into a program that's going to help them really move them towards self-sufficiency. And unfortunately, sometimes what we do is we provide a solution that exacerbates the problem. Like in many cases, I mean, if you take a person who's got substance abuse problems and you put them by themselves in a subsidized low-income housing unit, you've isolated them. They are going to become. You've actually exacerbated the problem. You need to put them into a supported system where they've got a support system around them. So it's a difficult challenge. It's comprehensive, and if we've got people that are sort of vagrants that are coming through, or even people that have come here because they found that the services here are really that we do provide the services well. And they don't have family, friends, loved ones here. We need to find out where they're from, and I would support bus tickets one way back to where they came from, where their family is, because that's going to be the number one way that we can solve that problem, is get people connected around people they love.
Recently, I went on to your opponent's website and I found an article about you, and I'm just going to take a paragraph from this, and I'm going to read it to you, and then hopefully you can provide some insight. So, Houston-based oil producer Phillips 66 has dumped $70,000 into a PAC whose purpose is to ensure that business lobbyist Tony Larson takes over as county executive. Together with developers and Tea Party activists, they are spending more than $100,000 to help their friend. They have stooped to telling lies to achieve this. Now, first, can you please explain what they are implying in this ad for those of us who are unfamiliar with PACs and outside money? And then second, describe your relationship with the Tea Party and how you have benefited from this PAC.
Boy, there's a lot packed into that. Well, yes, essentially a PAC is a political action committee, and what they have the ability to do, they're governed under the PDC requirements, Public Disclosure Commission, and it's organizations or people or individuals or anybody that wants to get together, they can form an entity, and then they fundraise into that entity, and that entity has to report just like any candidate does, and they can get involved in political activities. Now, the important thing is that a PAC cannot coordinate, collaborate, or connect with any candidate. It's against the law to do that. So first and foremost, I don't know who the folks that put together the PAC are. You can go to the PDC site and you can see the contributors, and that's what's being referred to. And what I'd say is a couple things. Number one is that this PAC clearly. I went to the website. I saw who the contributors are, and they are essentially P66 made a major contribution. Marathon Oil, which has a refinery in Skagit County, made a contribution, and the rest are subcontractors that do work out of Cherry Point. So clearly, it's a group of folks that have an interest in Cherry Point succeeding. So that being said, just put that aside for a second. There are a number of other PACs as well. There are PACs that are supporting candidates that aren't getting support from Cherry Point. Like, for example, the Washington Conservation Voters, and they put $46,000 into one candidate, to Natalie McClendon's campaign to defeat Ben Ellenboss, primarily because they're on the opposite side of a really a fight that's been going on at Cherry Point for the last really 5 years aggressively. My opponent has been on the Whatcom County Council for the last 5 years, where they have systematically worked to stifle the businesses out there. And where it really went over the top was this last January, when for the last 4 years, the County Council has been working on a Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan update amendments for Cherry Point. And the industry had been sort of involved in that, and they've been trying to collaborate along with the county council. As of this last January, what happens, they took all the work that had been done for the previous 4 years, and they completely shelved it, and a new document was introduced. And what we found out is that was on January 29th. And what we found out is that new document was written behind closed doors by special interest groups. One of them, Alex Rammel, who's a contributor of my opponent's campaign. He's the extreme field field director for Stand.Earth, which is a San Francisco-based extreme environmental organization, and with the stated goal of really stopping fossil fuels. So they've got an agenda, and so you've got PACs. So you've got these sides that have sort of really been battling about the future of Cherry Point. I've been on the record. I do support Cherry Point industry. I support them being heavily regulated, because it's a very dangerous industry. But what this group is trying to do is they're really trying to stifle them. They're really trying to stop them. They want to stop fossil fuels, period. And so it's no wonder that a group that put together a political PAC is and they're not supporting me per se, but it's one thing is clear to them, and that is that my opponent, who has been on the county council for the last 5 years, does not support them and what they're doing. So I can see what they're doing. In terms of it being a smear, I find this quite interesting as well, because, and I haven't seen all the stuff that they've done. I understand that there's been some television pieces written, and I did go to a website, and it's called, it basically has 2 pieces on it, and both of them are in his own words. And so, my campaign has been completely about taking the high road. That's what we've done. We were committed. We have not addressed, we have not engaged in anything but issues. And so one of the issues, for example, is he has said on multiple occasions that he wants to take all motorized vehicles off every lake in Whatcom County. And so fair enough, I totally disagree with that. There's been I don't even know his reasoning for doing that, because there's been 0 traces of hydrocarbons found in Lake Whatcom, which represents half the drinking water for people in Whatcom County. So that wouldn't solve a problem in terms of clean water. But he wants to take boats off of every lake: Samish, Weiser Lake, Silver Lake, where people have been taking their kids fishing for the last multiple generations. So that's a real issue. And if I disagree with that, we can talk about that as an issue. That's not a smear. He said it in his own words. Another thing I think they pointed out in the pieces that they've written was that he was on record at a county council meeting talking about his wish, his sort of vision or his dream that oil became $500 a barrel. That he said that. Now, all I can do. My background is I studied economics and finance, and it doesn't take an economist to understand that there's only a few ways you're going to get to $500 a barrel, and that really is by increased demand and cutting off supply. And that really is the impact of the policies on Cherry Point. It really is cutting supply and not allowing expansion. So I think that those things could be, and political PACs, they have a way of trying to really cut to it. And I don't like the negative nature of any of those. I want to talk about issues. But, in fairness, earlier today, a piece went out on me, and it's just really it's really nasty and disparaging. My opponent himself has been pushing out things that he knows are false statements that have been about me. He's been pushing them out personally on his Facebook and through his emails, and we've seen this stuff that's coming out through the mail. So it's completely and utterly disingenuous for him to talk about divisiveness in politics when he's been perpetuating it. And I would challenge anyone that's watching this, anyone in Whatcom County, to look at anything that's come from my campaign or that I've said that isn't above board and taking the high road. I will talk about any issues. We're talking about how we can make Whatcom County better, and I will continue to do that. And we're not going to engage in the negative stuff, even though it's literally happening now because we're in the last week of the campaign.
Yeah, and as you say that, I was just kind of thinking that I think what they're, trying to get out there is that you're bought and paid for by the oil and gas industry. And, if nobody comes to you and nobody asks you, and they just assume that, it's so easy in a county like this where everybody's very climate sensitive and they really care about the environment to just jump on that bandwagon and beat you down for it, even though now, after speaking to you, we know that that's not actually the case.
Well, I mean, you could say, the guy that I'm bought and paid for, I think part of the rhetoric was that before I make any decisions, I'm going to call Houston. It's just ridiculous. It's just, they're literally playing to the lowest common denominator. They essentially think people are idiots. Here's a reality that more businesses in Whatcom County of every size, in every shape, from every industry, have supported me than any candidate in the history of Whatcom County that's run. And part of that is because I have a history of, I have a basic fundamental belief, and that is business success is a key driver to community prosperity. When businesses are strong, they're able to hire people, they're able to provide benefits, they're able to pay taxes that provide the necessary services that we all use through the government. They give back to community causes. They're able to provide resources to protect the environment and all of those things. And so whether I believe in whether I support the product that a company, fossil fuels, I would much prefer a world with 100% renewable energy and solar and all that sort of stuff. We're not there yet. So what we should be doing is we should be supporting those companies that are going to be involved in this energy transition and providing them incentive to do that. And they want to do that now. With the current comp plan amendments, P66 is probably not going to be able to build their 100% renewable plant that they're, for diesel fuel, that they're going to use food stocks from animal fats and vegetable oils and that sort of stuff. 100% renewable. That would be about a $600 to $1 billion investment in local jobs and would give us the renewable energy we want. We could be the renewable leader of the world here in Whatcom County if we would look at it that way. And so instead, we get these negative, nasty, inappropriate, and untrue attacks that I'm in the pocket of anybody. Well, if you're going to say that, I guess I'm in the pocket of the farmers, and I'm in the pocket of manufacturing, I'm in the pocket of small retail, I'm in the pocket of small business people that want to do better for our community. And I'm proud of that. That's something that I will brag about. But the way that they represent it by putting me in an unfavorable light in a photo, it's just they think voters are dumb. I think voters know better, and we'll see come next Tuesday.
Born in Whatcom County, went to school here. You've raised a family here and owned several businesses here. What is it about Whatcom County that makes it such a special place, and what do you believe the role of local government is in preserving the way of life that many of us appreciate while simultaneously navigating the challenges that come with growing a county growing at a rate faster than the state average?
There's a lot to that question, and I'd say you're right. I was born here. I love this place. I raised my kids here, and I'm going to retire here. And my hope is that there's going to be an opportunity for my kids to come back and work here. And that won't happen on its own. It really does take leadership. And I think one of the things that's happened, over the last few years that is really changing our community is really the divisive nature of our politics. There's no reason we can't have good jobs and balance that with environmental protection. And Cherry Point is a perfect example of that. BP Cherry Point, the salmon habitat projects and all the things that they've done. People would look at that and rather than vilify it. They're the largest contributor to the United Way, and the United Way gives all kinds of local programs. So I view things in a different way. I view things. I'm an optimist. I love this area. I think it can be better. I'm concerned about Seattle. I go to Seattle. I think it's a pit. I'm trying to get my daughter to move out of there now. She's moved there, and I'm concerned about her safety. I'm just concerned about her health. it's just not a place that we want to have here. And it is transitioning here. And part of that transition comes with this divisive nature that there's only one way of doing things. I don't think I'm the smartest guy in the world, but the way that I approach things is when there's a problem to be solved, I first look at anybody else that may have solved it. Who's doing it well? You bring best practices in, and you model the best, and you duplicate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly wouldn't go down to Seattle policymakers and ask them how to, what are the best ideas to create a wonderful city, because that city is just literally, it's done this. I want to avoid that, and that's what's going to happen if we don't, really come together and say these issues are solvable. It takes leadership. It takes somebody that's prepared to take these hits, these political hits, that they're throwing out there. I don't care. I don't need somebody to tell me that I don't need anyone, to tell me I'm great, or I can do this, or I can do that. And I'm not going to believe anybody that tells me that I'm not capable, because I've done things. I've got a proven track record. The people that work with me, they know what I'm capable of. They know that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And that's what I'll do for Whatcom County. I've said a lot of things on this campaign. They've all been focused on policy solutions and leadership. And when I win, I will implement them. I will show the community that we can be better. And so, my concern is just listening to my opponent, through all these forums and these debates, is that it's all about this political rhetoric. It's all about this divisiveness of, you're this, and you need to vote for me because I'm this. What about your ideas? We were at a debate, and the question was, what are you going to do over the first 100 days of your administration? And his answer was, I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to, literally the way I took it, he essentially said, well, I'm going to watch, I'm going to learn, I'm going to think about it, and etc. And I thought, he's been on the county council for 5 years, not as a spectator, I would think. He's been engaged on the county council. My first 100 days, I'm going to make things happen. And I have quite the sense of humor. I always try to think about the funny side of things. And when he was talking, we were in this debate, when he said that, the first thing I did is said, did he really say that? And then I was thinking, well, on my answer, I literally was going to say, just out of humor, I was going to say, well, while my opponent is taking a vacation on the first 100 days, in the event that he wins, I'll volunteer my time and I'll come and I'll solve the problems. That's why I'm going there. I'm there to fix things. I'm there to make our community better, and I'm going to do that if the Whatcom County voters give me an opportunity to do it.
Fast forward to 2024. You've completed your first term. What are you most proud of?
I think two things. There are three things that I would really tackle in the first term, and one would be the planning department. We need a transformation, because that's gonna be necessary to get to to deal with the housing issue. We're gonna have to get housing supply online in appropriate places, and in order to do that, it shouldn't take so long to get a permit. And it doesn't matter whether you're a new business that's interested in relocating to our area, or whether you're a company that wants to expand their business. They're having a challenge doing that. Or if you're a homeowner that wants to add an addition onto their garage, there should be a pathway to predictable success. You should know how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and when you start, the person on the other side of the counter should be facilitating that process and getting that done as soon as possible. Unfortunately, that's not happening. That needs fixed, and that would be one priority. The second piece would really be, I think, would be tied to the budget. And we're seeing some budget trends that are of concern. They're not concerning right now because our economy is strong. We're taking in record tax revenues. Property values have increased over the last few years, so literally taxes increase as a result of property values increasing. So we're seeing that. $520 million in new construction. Sales tax projections are up about 5% for next year. So these are things that it's easy to live like in your household when income is flush and you have a good job and wages are coming in. It's easy to take vacations and do things. But when things tighten up and turn around, that's when you start seeing the problems. And one of the problems that's developed in the county is some of the expenses. And I have a way to fix those. I think I can really tighten up and make the government much more efficient and effective. And I think one of the trends in particular that's really crowding out future investment in some of these programs I'm talking about is going to need to be solved. Or otherwise, everybody's going to be challenged. Everybody's going to be saying, "Hey, I need more money," and it's just simply not going to be there. So I think really bringing some financial constraint to the county is important, and I think I can do that over the first 4 years.
That's all I have for you. So thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um,
This is unique. I'm glad you did this. It was a great opportunity.
Yeah, I actually reached out to your opponent and asked him if he'd be willing to do the same. I'll be honest with you. I even asked him if he had a specific question that he'd like to formulate to ask for me to ask you. That way we can get a very direct and substantive answer. Now he did reply, and he said that he had he was eloquent with how he stated it, and he said that he had known you for decades and that he had nothing to ask. So hopefully, going into the future, it may perhaps if he sees this, I'll get the chance to sit down with him and ask him some questions about you and about his campaign, about his future, going into the future. So.
Well, I've got to say that this format is a good one because in a lot of the cases we don't get an opportunity to interact. I have tons of questions for him. I've got a bunch of them because I've been involved in the forums, and a lot of the forums aren't debates, so you don't get to ask questions back and forth. You just basically have a minute or a minute and a half to answer a question, and that's not the way things get solved. You're not going to solve anything in a minute or a minute and a half. And it really, I think for voters to be really informed, that this kind of interaction is important, where you can ask questions, you can challenge questions, you can push back against questions. And I've got a lot of pushback against not only what he's done over the last 5 years and what he's not done. On affordable housing. He's talking now about how we should solve affordable housing, but there's been a super majority on the council for the last 5 years. So what have you done that you can point to that would solve some of these problems that we're talking about now as county executive? And I can point to a number of things that I've done over the last 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, in my roles where it hasn't been about talking about things. It's really been result oriented, and that's how you measure things. You measure things based on results and outcomes. And that's why I've never been a big goal setter. I don't like the word goal because a goal is something you throw out there and either you hit it or you don't. But a result, an outcome, you're always going to get an outcome. You're always going to get a result. It may not be the result you wanted, but you're going to get a result. And where are you? And if you don't get the result you want, what do you have to change in order to get to where you need to be? That's sort of my approach, is that we're going to get there. It's just how do we get there? What's the best way to get there? And from my perspective, the way you do that is you bring people in, you have an open mind. And I'm looking for better answers than I've got. If somebody's got a better answer, bring it. Has it been demonstrated? Has it worked? Okay. Has it been scaled? Let's do this thing. Let's make it happen. So, that's my approach is very different. And you don't get to communicate like this in a lot of those forums, and you don't get to communicate like this in a postcard. Instead, you get this negative nonsense that they're sending out against me, and they're trying to say things that anybody that knows me they'll just laugh at it, and actually they'll get frustrated because anybody that knows me, anybody that I've worked with, and it doesn't matter whether it's in public life as a former county council member, or in my private life, or in my coaching life, or in my church life, or in my business life, they know that I get engaged. I do what I say I'm going to do, and if I sort of believe in that old thing that when a handshake is all it takes, or your word is your bond, right? Your word is meaningful when you say something, and if you follow this campaign, you'd find that that's not a shared value of my opponent, and I've seen it, and I'll challenge him on all of these issues that he's talked about, and the idea of not being comfortable enough to say, okay, I made a mistake. I said that because I was pandering to somebody politically. Well, what do you really mean? You could ask me any question. I'll tell you what I mean. It's not going to change tomorrow. The only way it's going to change is if somebody brings a better idea, or somebody challenges my idea and pushes back on it and brings some, I'll change my ideas, but you'll know why I changed them. I changed it because I got new information. I think I can do it better this way. That's the way you move things forward, and that's the way our community is going to move forward, and that's what I'll do as county executive. So thanks for your time.
Do you think we'll ever see that day? Do you think we'll ever get to witness politics in a fashion where it could be your opponent sitting in this seat, and we could witness you two having a conversation about ideas?
I would love to do it. I would love to do it. An open,
because so much is missed during debates and forums. Like you said, you get a minute to answer, you're not really prying into what the other person believes, right?
I think that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things that will allow a community to get weak and really get to create challenges in a community, and that is that when your elected officials are being elected based on negative postcards and little pieces that they post on their website and false accusations against somebody else. I mean, it's much more difficult. I mean, if my opponent was sitting here and we were engaged like this, and I could respond to anything that he said, and he could respond to what I said, that would give people that were really paying attention an opportunity to understand the differences. And that's not an attack. I wouldn't attack. I would challenge, and that's I do that in business. That's how you push back in any successful company or any successful organization. You try to encourage your employees and your workers to push back on ideas. Bring your ideas forward. And if you've got an idea, push back on it. That's how you get to better ideas. And so to me, that's what's missing. And as a result, these little slogans and these labels. It's called label and dismiss. Where you label somebody, so it allows people to be really intellectually lazy, where they don't have to think about the ideas and who you are and what you really believe, because you're one of those. And you see that in these little negative campaign cards that are going out. That's what they're doing, is they're trying to label and dismiss. He's one of those, and they put it in dark shades and all that. And again, I would just like to remind people that we've engaged in none of that. Zero. It's all been about ideas. So if at the end of the day, the challenge is, how do you communicate with reasonable people who really want to make Whatcom County better? And hopefully this is one way to do it.
I can't wait for the day where I can see you and Mr. Sidhu in a neutral location and just having a conversation.
I would be in. I would do it anytime anytime, any place. I'd be there in a heartbeat. I would love to do that. That would be and we've had a couple of those, but again, the questions are directed. I'd love to be able to engage back and forth along with questions and be able to dive into them a little deeper and really challenge on them, because that's where we're really going to get where we're going. That's where people would have an opportunity to see where the substance is. Which of those make sense, which of those resonate, which one of those seem like they're thought through, and which ones will work and which ones won't. And I would tell you now that in those kinds of conversations, those are the kinds of conversations where I could scratch my head and change my mind on something if I learned something new. But in 1 minute, I'm not going to learn much new. It's going to be what I'm learning from is all the people that I've been out connecting with, and including and people in the business community. They really care about our community. I mean, these are business leaders. The presidents and CEOs and business owners. They've been engaged in the community, and they know their business. They know the things that are harming their business. They know the policies that are supporting their businesses and the ones that aren't. And so when you start looking at the support and who's supporting who, that's how you can tell. That's why the businesses are supporting me. That's why law enforcement is supporting me. That's why I've got firefighters supporting me. I've got, the Whatcom Realtors Association and, all the mayors in Whatcom County, the current county executive. There's just, the people that interact with me, they support me. And you look at my opponent, and it's basically these groups that are involved in divisive behavior. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And for people that are really paying attention, they'll see it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.